Lock your doors, the killer is still at large.
For more than a year, an entire city lived in fear of a killer who seemed to appear and disappear without warning. He struck at night, left behind almost no pattern, and terrified millions of people. His name would become one of the most infamous in American criminal history. Richard Ramirez, the man the media called the Night Stalker. In the summer of 1984, residents across Southern California began hearing reports of mysterious nighttime attacks. Victims came from different neighborhoods, different backgrounds, and different age groups. Some were elderly couples living quietly in their homes, while others were young adults who had no connection to previous victims. At first, investigators struggled to understand whether these crimes were even linked. The lack of a clear pattern made the investigation incredibly difficult. Richard Ramirez was born on February 29, 1960 in El Paso, Texas. His childhood was troubled, and according to court testimony and later investigations, he was exposed to violence and criminal influences at a young age. As he grew older, he became involved in drug use and petty crimes before eventually moving to California. By 1984, he was living a transient lifestyle, often staying in cheap hotels or wherever he could find shelter. The attacks that later defined the Night Stalker case began with home invasions committed under the cover of darkness. Ramirez often entered homes through unlocked windows or doors, choosing his victims randomly. Because there was no obvious connection between the crime scenes, police departments initially investigated many of the cases separately. This allowed the attacker to continue operating while authorities worked to identify the person responsible. As more attacks occurred throughout 1984 and 1985, investigators began noticing important similarities. Witnesses described a thin man with dark hair, and forensic teams recovered matching shoe prints from multiple crime scenes. Ballistics evidence connected several incidents involving the same firearm. Detectives also discovered that the crimes shared distinctive methods, leading them to believe they were hunting a single serial offender. The investigation soon became one of the largest in California history. Multiple police agencies formed a task force, sharing evidence and coordinating leads. Despite these efforts, Ramirez remained difficult to identify because he left behind very little personal information and frequently changed locations. Fear spread rapidly across Los Angeles and surrounding communities. Residents installed stronger locks, bought alarm systems, and many refused to sleep with their windows open. One of the biggest breakthroughs came through forensic evidence. Investigators recovered fingerprints from a stolen vehicle connected to the crimes. Those prints were entered into law enforcement databases, where they matched Richard Ramirez, who already had an arrest record. For earlier offenses. Detectives finally had a name and a face. On August 29, 1985, Ramirez's photograph was released to newspapers and television stations across California. His face quickly became known to millions of people. Unaware that his identity had been made public, Ramirez returned to Los Angeles after traveling to Arizona. When he stepped off a bus, he immediately noticed newspapers displaying his picture. Realizing he had been identified, he attempted to flee through nearby neighborhoods. What happened next became one of the most remarkable citizen captures in criminal history. Local residents recognized Ramirez from the media reports. As he tried to steal a vehicle and escape, people chased him through the streets, preventing him from getting away until police officers arrived. Instead of escaping once again, the man who had frightened an entire region was finally taken into custody by the very community he had terrorized. The trial began in 1988 and attracted enormous public attention. Prosecutors presented fingerprint evidence, ballistics findings, shoe print comparisons, stolen property connected to victims, and testimony from survivors and witnesses. Together, the evidence painted a detailed picture linking Ramirez to numerous crimes committed across Southern California. The proceedings lasted for months and became one of the longest and most expensive criminal trials in California at the time. In September 1989, Richard Ramirez was convicted on multiple counts, including numerous murders, attempted murders, burglaries, and sexual assaults. The jury recommended the death penalty, and the judge formally sentenced him to death. However, Ramirez was never executed. Like many inmates on California's death row, his appeals continued for years. On June 7, 2013, while still awaiting execution, Richard Ramirez died in prison from complications related to cancer at the age of 53. His death ended one of the longest-running legal chapters in one of America's most infamous serial murder cases. The Night Stalker investigation changed the way law enforcement agencies shared information across jurisdictions. It highlighted the importance of forensic science, fingerprint databases, and cooperation between multiple police departments. It also demonstrated how public awareness, combined with investigative work, ultimately helped bring a dangerous fugitive to justice. The Richard Ramirez case remains a chilling reminder that fear can spread quickly when crimes appear random and unpredictable. Yet it also shows how persistence, forensic evidence, and community action can eventually overcome even the most elusive criminal. What do you think was the biggest factor in finally capturing Richard Ramirez? The forensic evidence, the media coverage, or the actions of ordinary citizens? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.